All right, good morning. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, CDAI, for allowing community bankers to be here today. I'm sure most of you are like, what does banking have to do with AI? But let me tell you, from a community, as someone who's been in tech for several years, worked in the government, and then now working with community banks, which are really these small family-owned institutions. A lot have been around for a while. They are really the local engines of local economies. So it's ripe for innovation, and really the reach that they have, both local and with our governments, is just super important. But ICBA, we are almost 100 years old. We are the voice of community banks and really work to build a community focused on advocacy, innovation, and education within the banking community. One of the things I'll talk about a little bit later is what's unique about community banks is it's very peer-to-peer. And I don't know if you all had the same conversations I did yesterday, but a lot of what we talked about in terms of AI readiness was sharing resources, sharing ideas. Community banks, they won't do things unless they've heard another institution is doing that. And that's some of the observations I'm going to share today. But just to give you kind of the landscape of like how pervasive community banks are. So there are over 45,000 locations across the country. 97% of American counties have community banks in them. So you likely in your lifetime have banked with a community bank. The average American usually has 5 bank accounts, but we are not like the big banks. We are smaller. Many of the things that we do focus again on the local economies. About 700,000 people are employed by community banks. They hold over 1 trillion in deposits, 1.2 trillion in loans. The list goes on, but again, just tiny but mighty when it comes to making sure that they're offering capital access to banking products to various swaths of the America, including minority deposit institutions, which focus on underrepresented communities and rural communities. So it's super vital to our economy. And I appreciate CDAI bringing in SBA yesterday because they did a great job setting up me to talk about our connection to small businesses. So community banks make up 60%, over 60% of small business lending. So as you can tell, over the last 5 years, our banks have provided $331 billion in investments. We've helped support 6 million jobs, and we've provided over 500,000 loans. I see a lot of cameras coming out, so that's good, and this is public information. We also have a really good infographic on our website, icba.org, if you want more. I've got more stats coming up, so hold on. So we're super excited without us. And then also from an agriculture perspective, 80% of ag loans come from our banks. So again, it's super critical that our banks are driving efficiencies, staying connected. But I will also say it's also important to keep the human in the loop. We have bankers who go out from an agriculture perspective to count the cattle to make sure it aligns with the lending documents. So that's what's a little bit different from the big guys, is that we are the face, we keep the human there. You're probably going to know Bob's name and that he has 5 kids and is going to go to church and what's going on with the Little League, but that's what makes community bank experience very, very different. But one of the things that we've discerned in this survey that we did recently, what's really cool about our organization is we do talk directly with the owners, with the CEOs of these institutions. And so the journey to adopt AI has been very interesting with community banks. They're no strangers to AI. The real push, the driver here was during COVID when these banks had to issue thousands of PPP loans. So to really get those out, get the aid that was needed to businesses to make it through a pandemic we had never seen, it was really important to provide rapid process automation to get those loans out. And we're still seeing, these different use cases around lending. But one of the things we wanted to do is just understand, what the sentiment is, what's going on, what are the CEOs thinking. And so some of the challenges, because again, like healthcare, banking is highly regulated. So when we're talking about AI adoption from a banking perspective, it's done with a big heaping spoon of risk assessment, risk mitigation, because we have to think about how does this impact the customer? Are there any negative outcomes? So it's at top of mind for these folks. So again, there is some hesitancy because they want to make sure they're doing this, with their regulator in mind. What is the FDIC? What is Treasury? What is the Fed going to say if I adopt an AI solution that, provides a quick decision about a lending decision and may have an interesting outcome? So one of the things we found out is that some of the top thing is that there's not enough clear guidance from the regulator. It's outdated. One of the documents, SR11, which talks about model risk management, hasn't been updated since April 2011. So you can imagine, lots of things have changed since 2011 with this technology. So we have been partnering with other banking organizations to try to encourage the administration to, make sure the guidance is in alignment there. With what's going on. Another interesting finding is the NIST AI risk management framework. So, most of us in the room are aware of the framework, but outside the Beltway, this is still a document of mystery. So we are finding that, certain banks are still learning about the framework. Some of them don't find it helpful because it's too broad. And also just, with what they have to do currently with third-party vendor risk management, it doesn't fully align with what the regulators are expecting. So again, as NIST is probably going to work towards a 2.0 version of this, we are working with them to just highlight where we feel there are gaps where our CEOs are trying to fix that. Now, always top of mind, and this is, a passion of mine, cybersecurity, and I love my bankers because they are always talking about cybersecurity, is what does that mean? Like, is this going to create more ways for my bank to be exploited adopting this AI solution or not? So again, some of the roadblocks or barriers is just thinking about that for them. A lot of them are just like, does this make my bank more secure or more vulnerable? And then also just the vendor disclosures. I do want to add that one of the other unique things about community banks is that they rely exclusively on third-party vendors. So they are not like the big banks building large language models, building their own ATMs. They have over 100 vendors that they use, and so they are outsourcing a majority of their risk. So looking at ways where we can get disclosures, get these risks documented, and make sure put the vendors on notice that we are watching you, we're assessing continuously, and want to partner with you, but we also have to make sure that we're doing the right thing. The other piece that I think is very good is that at the board level, this is discussed. In fact, a lot of what we're finding is a lot of the boards are using AI to transcribe their board meeting minutes, because that is a part of regulatory auditing, is to look at the minutes from the board meeting. But then there's also just, looking for the opportunities. They want clear guidance. They want more education and use cases. They want these playbooks on how to adopt quicker, faster, what are the cool use cases. And they want these due diligence checklists, because that, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure this vendor is following all the things that are necessary that make me compliant and make sure that the institution stays safe and sound. Now, some of the things that we're working on based off this feedback at ICBA is around, again, innovation, education, and advocacy. So in terms of AI literacy, we have definitely made sure that we are providing education. We have a whole online platform, but we also know our banks are using other providers as well. Also, banks tend to get together outside or use state associations to share use cases. We were talking to somebody recently with a couple bankers who are using an AI system to help with thin file applicants. So those are folks who don't have 5 years of profit and loss statements to maybe qualify for a loan. So we call those folks thin file. They're using this AI tool to help them make a risk assessment on whether they want to take the risk and give this person a loan. So think somebody who wants to open a beauty salon and doesn't have, again, those statements. So providing, again, accessible access to standards. And then in terms of risk and compliance, I think, with what's happening at the state level, one of the things that we've been doing is monitoring what's going on there, highlighting to those bankers. There's been a change in implementation, like Colorado pushed their implementation up till later this year. So making sure that the bankers understand in those states what's going on and how that impacts them. But obviously at the federal level, we have some changes going on as well. And just to ensure that they're staying compliant with whatever AI solutions that they are adopting, because again, we are a highly regulated industry and need to make sure that we stay compliant. And then lastly, and we'll get into this in the next slide, is the innovation. So again, making sure that we see what the current use cases are, identify where there may be opportunities for other use cases. And the big one, we've been asking our bankers is, where are you most hesitant to use AI? Right now it is in lending, commercial lending, just because it's fraught with a lot of risk. There's a lot of additional regs around there, so many of our bankers do not use it in commercial lending. And then lastly, leveraging what we like to call our star child in this is the ICBA Think Tech Accelerator. Now, to help with this adoption around fintech and AI, a few years ago, ICBA started a fintech accelerator to work with startups who are creating, fintech platforms, but also with community banks in mind. So what we do, we have a 10-week program that we identify these banks. We actually had one that just kicked off 2 weeks ago. And this is a small sampling of I think these are our AI agents, the companies that have AI agents in banking. We have a swath of products and services that these folks have. I think it's close to 100 right now. But again, the point of this is it's twofold, right? We want to help the innovation ecosystem, get that flourishing, especially from a financial services perspective, but we also need to help our bankers find trusted, community bank focused solutions where they understand our needs, our customers, and understand that we are not going to go fully autonomous. We will always keep the human in the loop. I just recently, a really cool one that I saw, because this is a growing issue, check fraud is rampant, it's still here. I was hoping that the check EO would help abolish it. We're still seeing checks. The new problem now is that we are seeing AI generated checks. So synthetic checks are growing. So we have someone in our cohort this year who has a solution that can identify synthetic checks, wash checks. It just does it with the AI initially. And then the second step is the teller does a second look at it to verify what the AI has found. So it's really helping elevate fraud prevention. As I mentioned, the thin file aspect of that is super helpful too. So just to kind of, again, summarize, this is what ICBA is really working on in terms of making sure that our banks are AI ready. Again, while they are cautious, they are very optimistic, but moving at a pace where this is not about eliminating jobs. This is about driving efficiencies at the institutions while making sure that the institution stays safe and sound, and we can find other opportunities to provide services to communities that need it. With that, just a couple recommendations. I think just high level, we still want to see workforce training and resources. We obviously want clear guidance, updated guidance that reflects the current technological landscape. And we're very supportive of community AI readiness hubs. As our title says, we're into community banking, but peer-to-peer sharing is where we thrive. If somebody else is using Copilot, you better dang well believe they're going to go buy a Copilot license as well, because if it works for Community Bank A, it's definitely going to work for Community Bank B. So with that, that is the end of my lightning talk, but if you have any questions, feel free to come and chat. But we really appreciate being here today and look forward to more discussions later today. Thank you.